Welcome to Mythos AI, your source for Cliff's Notes on complex subjects. Join Anna and Phil for yet another engaging conversation.
You got it. The answer to Quizzypedia Season 208, Question 9, is Tito.
Tito.
From the History and Events category, the question was,
Okay.
this influential Yugoslav leader who held power from World War II until his death in 1980 was known for his unique position during the Cold War,
Right.
maintaining Yugoslavia's independence from both NATO and the Warsaw Pact. Leading the non-aligned movement, he played a significant role in promoting neutrality and cooperation among countries not aligned with either superpower.
Interesting.
What was the name of this historical figure?
It is a fascinating story. Josip Broz Tito, a complex figure.
Yeah,
He steered Yugoslavia through a really tumultuous period,
absolutely.
defying the prevailing currents of the Cold War.
For sure.
His life story offers a compelling lens
Mm-hmm.
through which we can examine the intricacies of leadership ideology and the delicate balance between unity and repression.
A great case study to look at all of those things. To understand Tito's path, we need to first look at his formative years.
Yeah, absolutely. Born in 1892 in what is now Croatia, Tito's early life was shaped by the region's ethnic diversity and socioeconomic realities.
Okay.
His experience as a prisoner of war during World War I exposed him to communist ideology,
Right.
a pivotal moment that profoundly influenced his political trajectory.
So these early experiences planted the seeds for his later embrace of communism.
Precisely. Upon returning to Yugoslavia, Tito became an active member of the Communist Party.
Okay.
His leadership qualities came to the fore during World War II when he spearheaded the partisan resistance against the Axis powers.
Right.
It was during this period of intense conflict that Tito consolidated his authority, demonstrating a strategic acumen that would define his rule.
This is where we begin to see the dual nature of Tito's leadership, emerging his ability to unite and inspire, but also his willingness to eliminate rivals to secure his position.
Yes, that duality is central to understanding Tito. After the war, he established a communist state in Yugoslavia, but crucially, he refused to become a Soviet satellite state. This defiance culminated in the Tito-Stalin split of 1948, a pivotal event that had profound implications for Yugoslavia's future.
That was a bold move, considering the Soviet Union's dominance in Eastern Europe at the time. What were the immediate consequences of this split?
Yugoslavia faced significant challenges,
Right.
including economic sanctions and political isolation from the Soviet bloc.
Okay.
However, this break also allowed Tito to chart an independent course for Yugoslavia,
Cool.
balancing relations between East and West in a way that defied Cold War paradigms.
This balancing act required considerable diplomatic skill. How did Tito manage to navigate this complex geopolitical terrain?
Tito understood the dynamics of the Cold War and strategically leveraged aid from both the capitalist West and the communist East.
Okay.
He played one side against the other, securing economic assistance and political support while carefully guarding Yugoslavia's sovereignty.
Interesting.
This maneuvering allowed Yugoslavia to experience a period of relative economic prosperity and maintain a unique position on the world stage.
Wow. But this balancing act had another side to it, didn't it? To maintain control and project an image of unity,
Yes.
Tito's regime resorted to suppressing dissent and any form of opposition.
Yes. That's an essential aspect of Tito's rule that can't be overlooked.
Yeah.
While he was maneuvering on the international stage,
Right.
domestically, he employed authoritarian tactics to maintain control.
Right.
The secret police, known as the UDBA, played a crucial role in silencing critics and ensuring ideological conformity.
Right.
This created a climate of fear and limited freedom of expression within Yugoslavia.
This is a stark reminder that Tito's leadership, while marked by strategic brilliance and an ability to forge a path independent of the superpowers, was also characterized by a willingness to use repressive measures to consolidate power.
Precisely. And this duality is further highlighted when we examine the founding of the non-aligned movement. In 1961, along with leaders like Nehru of India and Nasser of Egypt,
Right.
Tito played a key role in establishing NM, which offered a third way for newly decolonized nations seeking to avoid alignment with either of the Cold War blocs.
Okay.
This solidified Tito's image as a global statesman and champion of neutrality.
It seems this was a shrewd move, further elevating Tito's international profile and reinforcing Yugoslavia's independent stance.
Indeed, but it's crucial to recognize the inherent tension between Tito's international image and his domestic policies.
Okay.
While advocating for non-alignment abroad, his regime continued to suppress dissent and any challenges to his authority within Yugoslavia. This contrast between the outward projection of unity and cooperation and the internal reality of control and repression is a crucial element in understanding Tito's complex legacy.
So while Tito presented Yugoslavia as a model of peaceful coexistence and neutrality on the world stage, he simultaneously relied on authoritarian tactics to maintain control within its borders.
Exactly. It was a carefully crafted balancing act that ultimately had long-lasting repercussions for both Yugoslavia's development and its eventual unraveling.
Let's delve deeper into Tito's domestic policies, specifically his unique brand of socialism. Can you elaborate on the concept of samoprevzanje, or worker self-management, which he implemented in Yugoslavia?
Samoprevzanje was a cornerstone of Tito's vision for a socialist society. It aimed to decentralize the economy and give workers greater control over decision-making within their workplaces. The idea was to increase productivity and worker satisfaction by allowing those directly involved in production to have a say in how their enterprises were run.
It sounds like a radical departure from the centralized top-down economic models prevalent in other communist states at the time.
It was, and it had a significant impact on Yugoslavia's economic development. By giving workers a stake in the success of their enterprises, samoprevzanje fostered a sense of ownership and responsibility.
Right.
This led to some notable achievements in terms of economic growth and industrial development.
But was samoprevzanje truly as empowering as it was presented to be? Or was it, as some argue, a way for Tito to maintain control while appearing to relinquish it?
That's a question that has been debated extensively. While samoprevzanje did offer workers a degree of autonomy, it operated within a framework that ultimately reinforced the party's control over the economy. The system was susceptible to manipulation and was often used to suppress genuine worker dissent.
So it was a complex system with both potential benefits and inherent limitations.
Yes, and its effectiveness varied widely depending on the specific industry and the political climate at the time. While it fostered innovation and productivity in some sectors, it also led to inefficiencies and corruption in others.
This notion of decentralization also extended to the political structure of Yugoslavia, with Tito granting a degree of autonomy to the various republics that made up the federation.
Exactly. Tito recognized the need to acknowledge the diverse ethnic and regional identities within Yugoslavia. He believed that by granting the republics a measure of self-governance, he could mitigate the potential for conflict and maintain a cohesive federation.
But wasn't this decentralization also a calculated strategy to prevent the emergence of a unified opposition that could challenge his authority?
Yes, that was undoubtedly a factor. By creating a system where power was dispersed among the republics, Tito effectively minimized the threat of a centralized opposition movement forming against him. It was a shrewd political maneuver that helped him maintain control while presenting an image of inclusivity and respect for regional autonomy.
Alongside these structural reforms, Tito also actively promoted the concept of brotherhood and unity as a way to foster harmony among Yugoslavia's diverse ethnic groups.
Brotherhood and unity was a central tenet of Tito's ideology. He believed that by emphasizing shared Yugoslav identity and downplaying ethnic and religious differences, he could create a sense of national unity that would transcend historical divisions.
But this emphasis on unity came at a cost, didn't it? Any expression of nationalism or dissent was met with swift and often brutal repression.
Yes, that's the paradox of Tito's rule. While promoting brotherhood and unity, his regime actively suppressed any form of nationalism that challenged the official narrative of a unified Yugoslavia. The UDBA was used to silence dissenters and enforce ideological conformity. Goli Otok, a notorious prison camp, served as a chilling reminder of the consequences of opposing Tito's vision.
So Tito walked a tightrope, attempting to balance the need for unity with the reality of a diverse and complex society.
Precisely. And the methods he used to maintain this balance ultimately had long-term consequences for the stability of Yugoslavia.
This leads us to another key aspect of Tito's rule, the pervasive cult of personality that surrounded him. How did this cult develop, and what role did it play in maintaining his power?
The cult of personality was a carefully cultivated phenomenon. Tito's image was omnipresent in the media, in schools, on posters, and in public spaces. His birthday was celebrated as Youth Day, a national holiday marked by elaborate festivities designed to reinforce his connection to the future of Yugoslavia.
It seems This was a deliberate strategy to create an aura of infallibility around Tito and solidify his image as the indispensable leader of the nation.
Exactly. The state-controlled media played a key role in shaping this narrative, portraying Tito as a benevolent father figure and attributing all of Yugoslavia's successes to his leadership. This left little room for alternative viewpoints or critical analysis of his policies.
And those who dared to challenge this narrative faced the full force of the UDBA's repressive apparatus.
Precisely. The UDBA instilled fear and silenced dissent, creating an environment where open criticism of Tito or the party was virtually impossible. This atmosphere of repression had a profound impact on intellectual and cultural life in Yugoslavia, stifling creativity and critical thinking.
So while Tito successfully maintained stability and projected an image of unity and progress for much of his rule, this came at the cost of individual freedoms and the suppression of diverse voices within Yugoslavia.
Yes, and this tension between control and freedom would ultimately contribute to the unraveling of Yugoslavia after Tito's death.
Tito's death in 1980 marked a turning point for Yugoslavia. What happened in the aftermath of his passing that led to the eventual disintegration of the country?
Well, Tito's death exposed the fragility of the unity he had so carefully constructed.
Okay.
The system he created was heavily reliant on his personal authority and charisma. Without him at the helm, the delicate balance he had maintained between Yugoslavia's diverse republics and ethnic groups began to unravel.
So the very system that provided stability during Tito's rule ultimately contributed to its downfall.
Yes, the lack of strong institutions capable of managing the country's complex ethnic and regional divisions, combined with the resurgence of those suppressed nationalistic sentiments, led to the tragic Yugoslav wars of the 1990s.
It's a stark reminder that authoritarian rule, while capable of maintaining order in the short term, often fails to create the conditions for lasting peace and stability.
Indeed. The suppression of dissent and nationalist sentiments under Tito's rule only served to push these tensions underground. Once his iron grip on power was gone, these suppressed forces resurfaced with a vengeance.
This raises important questions about Tito's legacy. Was he a benevolent dictator who held a fragile nation together? Or was his rule ultimately responsible for the tragic disintegration of Yugoslavia?
It's a complex question with no easy answers. Tito's legacy is a subject of ongoing debate, with perspectives often shaped by personal experiences and political leanings. Some view him as a visionary leader who defied the superpowers and created a relatively prosperous and independent Yugoslavia. They point to the economic progress, social reforms, and international standing achieved during his rule.
Others, particularly those who suffered under his repressive policies, see him as an authoritarian figure who prioritized his own power over the well-being of his people.
Exactly.
They highlight the human rights abuses, the suppression of dissent, and the stifling of intellectual and cultural freedom that characterized his regime.
Both perspectives hold some truth.
Yeah?
Tito was a product of his time, shaped by the turbulent events of the 20th century. He was undoubtedly a skilled politician and strategist, but he was also a ruthless dictator who was willing to use any means necessary to maintain control.
It seems that Tito's legacy is ultimately a mixed bag, a combination of genuine achievements and undeniable transgressions. How should we reconcile these contrasting aspects of his rule?
Well, perhaps the key takeaway is that history is rarely black and white. Leaders are complex individuals driven by a mix of noble aspirations and personal ambitions. Tito's story compels us to move beyond simplistic narratives and grapple with the nuances of his leadership, acknowledging both its positive and negative aspects.
His story also serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of prioritizing stability over freedom and the importance of addressing underlying social and political tensions rather than simply suppressing them.
Indeed, Tito's rule demonstrates that lasting peace and unity cannot be imposed through force or coercion. They must be built on a foundation of justice, equality, and respect for human rights.
Tito's Yugoslavia, for all its complexities and contradictions, offers valuable lessons for understanding the challenges of nation-building, the allure and perils of authoritarianism, and the enduring quest for a just and equitable society. It's a story that continues to resonate today, reminding us that the choices leaders make have profound and lasting consequences for their people and the world.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Mythos AI. Stay tuned for more concise insights. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe for future episodes.